Hello and welcome everyone to another Inkarnate live stream. My name is Mati and today I'm going to be showing you how to create puzzles for just about any fantasy campaign. So welcome. Now if you want to follow along on today's stream, go ahead and check the chat. You will find the link to this map. Just clone, edit it, and follow along. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to find that link in the video description. Let's not waste any time and just jump right in. Now, whenever I am using any kind of encounter map, I always like to turn my grid on because the grid is extremely useful for pretty much everything. It's going to help you set scale. It's going to help you to figure out where to place things, easy movement. The grid is always going to be helpful, okay? Now, before we jump into that, I first want to also just define what a puzzle is. For me, at least in my campaigns, a puzzle is basically any series of challenges that players must overcome for them to continue on in the story, the battle, the encounter, whatever it might be. So it's a series of challenges, and it can be as simple as just solving a riddle, or it can be complex with multiple steps. It could be even a form of combat or an encounter that has a series of challenges to the encounter. All those things could be considered a puzzle, okay? All right, so let's just move right into the first one. And one of the first things you're going to notice is that, of course, everything is nicely lined up with the grid. And we have our first room right here in which your players are going to be entering. Now, the most simplest puzzle that I can think of is a pressure plate. Okay, a pressure plate is a sensitive plate that picks up a certain amount of weight and will kind of activate something. For me, most puzzles can do several things. The goal of a puzzle might be to progress forward. That means you're unlocking a door, a chest, or whatever it might be. You're trying to move forward. Puzzles get in the way of that kind of progression. Now, in this room, the first thing you'll notice is a room, right? Every player is going to walk in and they're going to see that the way out is through a door that is locked. Your players will walk up to it and notice that it's locked. But they're also going to notice that there's a mechanism next to the door. You have a symbol right here and perhaps a scale right here, because remember, it's a pressure plate. Okay, the pressure plate will tell you whether or not it's the right weight or not. So what we're dealing with is a weight system. And you're also going to notice 3 different weights, which, if you're wondering how I made these, if you check the sewer pack, you'll find a pillar. All I did was desaturate it. If you're not certain how to desaturate something, it's not too complex. If I click an object, go down to advanced settings, keep scrolling down, you'll notice that when you click the advanced settings, it's going to cause some more scrolling to do. You'll see something called color, and you'll just click saturation and take it all the way down to 0. That's how you desaturate anything. And by desaturation, I mean making it grayscale, okay? So these pillars right here, and if you're not certain what these symbols are, these are called a mystery box or puzzle. I believe it's a puzzle box. That is in the Gothic horror pack. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that this symbol right here correlates with one of the symbols over here. So you'll see that that weight has this symbol. Your players will most likely deduce that they need that weight on that pressure plate. But the next question now is, how do we move it to that position? So what I like to do is first create how many of these weights that you want. If you're doing something simple, just use one weight, remove the other 2, and then just push the weight until you get to that thing. Now, if you're going to do something as simple as that, then I recommend adding in some combat or a little bit of an encounter, because players don't want to do the same thing for more than about 10 or 15 minutes. It's best to kind of keep them stimulated and to keep them interested in what's happening, both through challenge and imagination, storytelling. And one thing is that if you have a super duper simple puzzle, then I totally recommend throwing in maybe 1 or 2 bad guys into the mix, so that way it's a mix between a very simple puzzle and some combat. So that way your players aren't kind of distracted or don't lose interest in the puzzle as a whole. Now, first I'll explain how the puzzle works, a series of positions that need to be done for this to work. So I'll open up my ruins, and the first thing players will have to do is they're going to have to move, let's start from the beginning here. If you're next to the door, the first thing I like to move is the block that's closest to the door. So Move number 1 is to move this block out of the way. The second one will be to push this block down 1. And you'll notice there's a hole right here. Moving this block to cover the hole. And then players simply need to push this one down, across, and down to here. And then players can go in right here and push it into place. So now the more weights that you have, the more complex the puzzle is. The way that I usually start is I pick how many weights that I want with the pressure plate. And then, of course, I'll go ahead and the more that you have, the more complex. And then, of course, what I like to do after that, sorry about that, we'll fix that, move these out of the way, is to make sure that the room is big enough so that there's space to push these weights. Okay, so it's super important that you make sure that you leave enough room for that to happen, okay? So now once your players have finished the puzzle and the door unlocks, then you might go into another room. Now let's change up what kind of puzzle this is. Remember our definition. A puzzle is a series of challenges that a player has to overcome. So since this probably right here was 3 weights, a series of steps, this was more cerebral than it was action oriented, then in the next room, if you have a puzzle, don't make it quite as complex. Instead, add some monsters into the mix, depending on how many you want and what level your players are at. 2 or 3 should be fine. So there'll be a mix of combat. Of course, the first stage in the puzzle, or the first obstacle, will be to defeat the enemies. Once the enemies are defeated, then you can go ahead and try to solve the puzzle in the room. The puzzle in the room is a drawbridge. Right here, you'll see there's a drawbridge with chains, and that drawbridge is going to cover this divide right here so that your players can get across, go up the steps to the next part of the map. But when players turn the wheel to get the door to open, it's jammed and it doesn't seem to work. So players will now have to walk around the room to find what's the problem is. And if you look over here, you'll see that there is a stick that I put in the chain. So players simply have to remove the stick and then they'll be able to move it. So it's a simple puzzle. Just first step 1, defeat the enemies. 2, find the stick, remove it. And then finally, you can use the wheel to bring the drawbridge down. A puzzle can be as simple as 1 or 2 steps or just 1 step. If there's a smaller amount of steps, then I totally recommend throwing in encounter or some kind of obstacle that's on the map, whether it's a trap or some kind of environmental damage, whether it's grasping vines coming for you or toxic or fire or whatever it might be, adding that extra layer of challenge for your players. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's go into a cavern. Now with the cavern one, you don't have to apply this one to a cavern. This could be inside of a church. It could be a crypt. It could be whatever it is you want to be, okay? But we're going to go through several puzzles on this one right here. The first one is going to be the music puzzle, which is already set up. And the way that I set this musical puzzle up is to first have a centerpiece. And the centerpiece, if you're doing a music puzzle, you're probably going to expect some kind of musical instrument. A pipe organ or piano works perfect, okay? And with the music puzzle, what I like to do is that there's a specific song or a certain series or sequence of notes that players have to press to unlock either a chest or a door. You'll see there's a door right here, and there's some pipes right here and some pipes leading to the door. When you are placing your puzzle, it's always good to make sure that the players recognize that there is a puzzle. So look carefully, pipes right here, letting them know same type of pipes that are associated with the centerpiece of the puzzle. So they understand that, hey, these things are related. The door can be opened by solving this puzzle. In the beginning of a map, normally what I like to do is to have something, either you're going to announce to the player that there is going to be a puzzle, you know, when you first enter into the dungeon or whatever it might be. I like to have either some kind of intro or something to kind of let players know that, hey, there is a kind of a complex puzzle here that's going on. So when players read that book, they might say, you could put a poem or put in a rhyme or a riddle that says something like, only those who know the song or the sing song of whatever can pass. So That way they know that, oh, hey, there's going to be a puzzle here, and they're going to proceed up to here, and they're going to notice that there's the organ right here. And one thing I like to do, especially if there's a puzzle going on, is to have papers lying around. Notice that there's papers everywhere. Those papers are something that players can read. Maybe there's notes on there. Maybe there's a diary. Maybe there's a military report, whatever it might be. Those little pieces of paper are great for players to walk onto that space and they discover some information that might be important to solving a puzzle, okay? Now with this kind of puzzle, there's quite a few sequences or quite a few steps. What you're doing is you're trying to uncover all of the notes within the song. So what I like to do is to make sure that accessing each note, finding out what each note is a challenge in itself. So we'll go and we'll put a series of challenges. One of the best things that I like to do is to throw in a body. Players love to loot bodies. One of the first things they'll do when they'll see a body is they're going to loot the living daylights out of it. And when they do, put some goodies on there, whether it's some notes, whether it's a few of the notes within the song or some lyrics in the song, whatever it might be. So bodies are a must. Players are immediately attracted to corpses. So I totally recommend that you put keys, whatever it is your players need to find, putting it on a corpse is extremely helpful. Okay, another one, besides corpses, you can also use skeletons. Skeletons work great too. Players will likely search what's on the skeleton as well to see if what they're looking for is there. Another one that you can do is putting some chests, barrels, and crates, or a bag. All those things, players are going to say, hey, there's a bag, I wonder what's in it. Hey, look, there's a chest. Let's get into the chest. Now, what I like to do is, especially if there's a chest, I always like to put normally one combatant next to the chest so that way it's not as simple as just going up the steps and just opening the chest and finding whatever the first letter or number or whatever it might be to the music puzzle. And so that way it's not as simple just going up the steps, opening the chest, there it is. Create a challenge for your players. Throw in either some kind of creature or some kind of environmental damage, some kind of problem, some kind of thing to solve before you can kind of get to the chest, okay? So it's kind of helpful to throw that in there. I've also thrown in a crate. Players love to bust up crates. It's like Zelda, right? You break up all the rupees. You break up all those pots, you can get those rupees. Same concept, okay? Same thing with the crate here. Or not a crate, but the barrel here. There's also a backpack hidden in the shadows here. I never try to make it super duper obvious where things are hidden. That's the point of hiding something, is to make your players look for it. But that's why if you're having a player look for something, it's nice to have some things that the player is looking for in plain sight. For instance, the corpse that they can get to here, this right here, all of these are in plain sight. So that way players can get a piece of the puzzle solved without spending all their time looking for 6 or 7 hard things that they're looking for. So mix between well-hidden things and some fairly obvious things, okay? That way your players aren't going to get bored to death saying, well, we've looked on this map for 20 minutes and we found one part of the puzzle. Don't do that. Your players are going to want a series of challenges that are going to be a mix between very easy, medium-sized challenge, and somewhat difficult to find. So because you want to encourage both a cerebral challenge, the combat, which is stimulating, that's going to be your action, and of course exploring the map for things. So just mixing all three of those things into the puzzle. Now, so the music puzzle is simple. Once you've found all the things, all the notes within the song and have figured out the arrangement of the notes, then you can press the key, it will unlock this door, and you'll proceed to the next thing. Now, I've got 5 more puzzles in this cavern space, so let's go over those puzzles as well. Let's do a torch puzzle. And I did a recent perspective battle map with a puzzle that had torches in it. And of course, as always with these puzzles, I've got a centerpiece, which is a large lit brazier. So that means that if your players have a torch, and you can see there's a torch right here, to indicate, hey, you're going to need to light either this torch or a torch that your players have. And of course, you're probably going to want to light some of these torches that are on these pedestals here. And of course, there might be a sequence of torches that people or the players have to light to unlock the door, okay? Now, if you want to take it a step higher or you want to make it a little bit easier, you could, of course, have symbols that represent a specific order so that way it's easier. So this symbol is the first one, the other symbol is the second, third, and fourth one. And you can simply just at the beginning, you could say that this thing right here has a pattern of these things, these little puzzle boxes, again, Gothic horror, those little puzzle boxes, and that way they'll know the order right away. Now, if you're doing something as simple as just moving across the map, lighting torches, throw in some combat so that way there's an extra series of challenges. You can also throw in traps as well, so that way players' movement is limited, giving it more challenge to get from each torch, okay? So it's up to you. You can even have negative consequences. For instance, if you light the torch in a wrong order, an enemy might appear somewhere, okay? Or a trap might get activated or whatever. There should be consequences to making mistakes with puzzles, okay? So really, the torch puzzle is super simple. It's easy to make. All you just need is the unlit brazier so that way people know, like, hey, these ones are unlit and there's a lit one in there somewhere. And it's up to you on the order. It's not complex. Okay, so we finished that torch puzzle. Let's do a mirror puzzle. Now you'll notice that a lot of these puzzles are super tropey, and you know what? The more tropey they are, the better, because players who are familiar with puzzles makes it easier for them to finish the puzzle, but also making it challenging by changing the order, right? So puzzles should not be ridiculously complex. They should be simple enough that each step is easy to figure out, but some challenge to each step that comes with it, all right? And normally, when it comes to a series of challenges, I like to make sure that each challenge, it pertains to one of the pros and cons of each player, so that way each player feels like they get a little bit of limelight. So a priest or a paladin might be more suited to this challenge in this step than a barbarian would. So that way, each step in the series of challenges makes it so that each player feels like they're involved and contributing to the puzzle, because no player wants to feel left out. So with these multi-step challenges, definitely throw in, play off the strengths and weaknesses of each one of your players. Now for this one, it's not complex. This is as simple as just making sure that the laser that gets fired from the crystal right here is going to reflect on each one of these mirrors. Now, of course, because it's as simple as just rotating the mirror, throw in challenges such as enemies, or throw in traps or consequences when something goes wrong. Enemies appear, traps get activated. So really the mirror one is not complex, and you can make it go any way that you want. So it can be like that, or you can, let's undo it, you can have it shaped to where it goes like this. Whatever it is that you want it to be. So don't find it complex. So really you just want the beam to connect between all of the mirrors, so that way when it goes to hit up here, where that is, that it lands on its mark. So not a super hard one. I generally would throw in monsters or some kind of enemy combatants, so that way players aren't feeling bored with the monotonous task of just rotating mirrors, so that they solve the puzzle. That combat, again, is going to be helpful. Hey, first time chatter, GingerVita5, awesome. Torch challenges are awesome. I'm so glad that you're going to do that. Your players are going to have a great time. Let's go on to, we got 2 more puzzles to do. We have a machine puzzle, okay? Machine puzzles are fun, and the way that I like to do machine puzzles is to basically have some kind of control panel. You can find that in the train pack. This is a control panel right here, and you'll see that I've used the path tool, and by path tool I mean this right here. Click that P key, and the path tool, not complex, just use a black color, no shadow, and you can change the width to any size you want. Notice here that I have these wires right here. The reason why you want the wires to be visible is so that it kind of shows you the sequence of circuits and parts of the puzzle that you have to go perhaps in sequence to get it to work. Okay, so I've got 4 different mechanical things here, and really the sequence can be any way that you want. Maybe you have to complete a circuit on each side, the left and the right. For instance, when your players show up, they notice that, oopsie, that's not right. I want to do a path tool. Here we go. They notice that this switch doesn't work, and so, or when they pull the switch, nothing happens. So now they're going to have to figure out the challenges of each one of these things that you see here. Let's undo that, by the way. I accidentally moved it off the grid. There we go. My mistake. Okay. So let's start with going to the left first. It can be just as simple as just opening up a valve. Okay. Maybe turning that valve allows electricity to then travel to this next piece. Okay. And maybe players have to go up here to press a button. And then these things, you can tell your players that this mechanism lights turn on and it starts whirring, and that means it's completed. Again, throw in monsters, traps, and other things to break it up. Once you've completed that first side, and you'll see that electricity is kind of buzzing, it's good to go, then you can move over to the next one where you simply flip a switch. Again, super easy. And then something a little bit more challenging, putting some coal that you see right here into this machine. And then gears start moving, start whirring, and then the doors open. Okay, so a sequence or series of steps for challenges so that your players can open up the map, open up the door. Okay, I think there's only one more left, and that is the Orb Puzzle. This is similar to the music puzzle. It's where your players are going to basically looking for 3 balls that they need to put into each one of these holes right here. And then obviously right here, you'll see that one of the balls will then go in sequence through this pipe and then go up into here and release this mechanism. Again, you want to make sure that players know that, hey, this is connected with this. So putting those pipes there makes that obvious. And it's similar to the music puzzle in a sense that players need to find 3 different orbs. And again, just like the music puzzle, they can go inside of chests. I put 4 chests here. I've made one of the chests maybe a mimic or a trap because there's 3. Or you can hide those orbs somewhere else, and the chests are purely traps. Normally what I do when a chest is a trap, I will pick maybe 2 chests to actually have the orbs in it, and then maybe have an orb somewhere on the map somewhere the players have to find, and then the other 2 chests are either a mimic or a trap, whichever you want, because players will start to think that, oh, hey, all of these chests must have what I'm looking for. It's always nice to surprise your players a little bit, so give them a little bit of a challenge. So in other words, these are all the various types of puzzles. There are so many more puzzles that we could do, but these are just the ones that I have here. And of course, if you ever are curious about what kind of puzzle to put in your campaign or encounter map, just ask me and I will gladly help, okay? I love to help. We have 2 more little maps to cover, and we're running out of time, so let's get cracking, okay? Now, a puzzle doesn't also just have to be trying to unlock stuff. What you also have as well is having the environment itself being a part of the puzzle. So when your players first walk in, and it can be either this side over here as they walk in, or it can be this side. For me, I'm putting it on this side for a particular reason. Players walk in or they jump into the sewer area. And one of the first things you'll find is right here, 2 valves, some steps that go up to the valves, and there's a drainage right here. And you'll see that there is a piece of wood, like maybe a bridge or something there. And then you'll also notice that on there is a paddle. So let's first describe what the puzzle is. Now, each one of these things that you turn right here raises the level of the sewage up okay? And by raising the sewage level up, it also raises this floating bridge up, which allows you access to get up to here, okay? That's the main part of the puzzle, is to get access to there. So changing the sewer level so that it goes up or down to solve a series of puzzles, okay? So that's the main mechanic, is that you can change the level of the sewer water in this room to be up or down, okay? Now the first one is, you're gonna notice some things on the map. And the first one is this key right here. And the keys are something I like to put on the map when there's perhaps something that's locked. It could be a chest, or it could be a door that you have to access, okay? So for me, the challenge is, how do we get this key? There are two things you can do. You can just jump on top of this thing right here, and then have somebody turn on the water and it raises up and you grab the key. Or you can have, let's say the water comes out of this one right here. The water rushing out will cause the key to fall down onto the ground and your players can access it. So extremely helpful to add several parts of this puzzle, because what I like to do is to throw in some extra things on the map that act as a puzzle. A locked door or a locked chest is a challenge. It's something your players need to figure out how to unlock or open up, right? So players will also want to get to this up here. How do they get up to there? By being on the flotation device, raising the sewer water, and then moving that craft with the paddle over to here until they get up to here. Now, once they get up there, unless they found one of those keys, they will not be able to unlock this or to get to the chest, right? So first part of the puzzle might be to get the key. Now, earlier we talked about having corpses as a way to hide keys. So I put in this green goo right here for a reason, because it stands out and players might be interested by it. And as you can see, the key, there's another key connected to this corpse that's submerged under the water. So the water level will have to be down for players to access, to get to that corpse and to find the key, okay? And of course, if your players don't want to touch the ooey sewer water, of course, they're going to have to lower the water level down so that way they're not trudging around in it, okay? So really, the puzzle was simple, raising the water up and down. The steps of the puzzle, of course, are finding those keys so that way you have access to open up. For instance, what I would do is have this key opens up the doors, and then this key right here opens up the chests. Or you can just have it to where one key opens the chest and the door, or the one key opens the other chest and the door. It's up to you how you want to go about it, okay? So I'll leave that up to you. So again, the puzzle here is really manipulating the environment so that you can access certain things. Not complex, super easy. Just be creative. Some great way to look up puzzles is just to think of your favorite video games. Sometimes like your JRPGs or RPGs that you like, and to play those games or find footage of those games and find puzzles that you find interesting, okay? But I cannot stress enough that your environment is super important. For instance, this could be water this could be a water puzzle instead of sewer. This could be sand instead of sewer water, right? So let's say you're in underneath a desert dungeon and there's sand in there. You're trying to raise the sand up and down, okay? Let's say it's lava. You're trying to get the lava to go down or up, okay? So really think about the multiple challenges. Notice you have some platforms right here. If it's lava, then each player has to find higher ground to not catch on fire. That's why I put some of these pillars here, right? To add some challenge to it. So it's super important to be sure that that you think about the environment of the encounter map and then weaving in the challenge or the puzzle into that environment. Okay, so there's one more left, and this one is the most complex, okay? But it may be the most complex, but it is also probably the most challenging. So let's talk about first what you're looking at and how this works. your players enter into a room. It could be a dungeon, it could be a cave, it could be whatever you want. They've entered into the room. Now, when I want players to discover the secret or discover how to solve a puzzle, I want to make sure that the mystery of the puzzle or the presence of the puzzle, it becomes clear, because I don't want my players running around like crazy trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do here? Okay, your players are going to get bored of that. So when your players go over to here, they're going to notice that there is a hole in the wall, and they're going to notice that there's some track here. Okay, and that's the first step. They notice that there's tracks involved, and so probably players are going to be involved with moving things or trying to put a cart on the track and try to move. So think of it as a, let's think of it as a Temple of Doom kind of situation, okay? Now players kind of discover that there's tracks, so they know that that's involved. Now they're going to want to move around and explore the rest of the map to try to find out how to solve the rest of the puzzle, okay? Now, you notice that there's a series of broken pots or urns here, so if you want, you can put secrets, Easter eggs, whatever it is you want inside of those pots. Players can break them, they can find money, they can find whatever they want. Maybe there's a monster inside one of them, whatever it might be. It's just to throw in a challenge. This is a crypt, so I've thrown in some crypts that will open up and the undead will crawl out and attack you if you get close to that area. So throwing in combat, because there's a lot going on, a little bit of combat can make the challenge a little bit more fun. Remember, players get bored very easily, so entertain them. So throw in combat, so there's some adrenaline rush on top of some cerebral action, okay? So once players defeat the combat here, that's a part of the challenge, they then see another hole in the wall with a ball. So now they know that there's a track and a ball that needs to go on the track. Okay, so that's extremely helpful. Okay, now you've solved the second part of the puzzle, which is, okay, you figured out one, there's tracks, that's a part of it, you figured out the ball. The next step is, okay, why isn't the puzzle just, why can't I solve it right now? What is the challenge? And that is that a piece of the track that the ball goes on is facing in the wrong direction. And so what I've done is I've created a little area on the wall with a wheel, and you simply turn that wheel to get this to line back up. And what I would do is even put a little hole right here so that players can see through the hole and see that the track is being rotated and so that it's lined up properly. Okay, so that's the next challenge. Now I'm going to put a series in there. It's okay to have repetitious puzzles where you do repetitious actions. Just make sure to put both exploration and combat in, okay? I cannot stress that enough. I'll probably keep saying it. So now once you've completed the first part of that challenge by simply rotating that, you're going to keep going and find the next piece to rotate. And you'll notice that there's some palisade walls are in the way. You can throw in some combat here. Before you get to that next one, players can hack and slash or fight their way to get to it. Okay. One thing you can do is that not making it so simple. For instance, let's say that there's a gear missing, so this won't work. Players maybe have to break a pot or an urn and they'll find a gear that's missing, and then this way this thing can work again. So throwing in a challenge is good. A piece that needs to be repaired or anything like that will really be helpful. Okay, so the combat. And then finally, we're going to throw in another one over here. And of course, you see that there's combat. You could have a missing piece or a missing gear or something, or just you could have it be stuck on something. So maybe a player has to hit it with a hammer or something to get it to unstuck, whatever it might be. Once all of those things are completed, then this ball should go, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Players will have to go back over here and notice that there is a lever or a lever right here, which releases the ball and goes down on the track. And the ball will go down the track underneath and then go inside this hole and activate the door. And what, again, you'll see there's a little mechanism right here that will open this door that allows you to get into that room. Now, whenever your players solve a puzzle, there should always be some level of reward, okay? The more challenge that it is, the more work it is for your players, the greater the reward. If it's just a very simple puzzle that only required maybe a little bit of work, then the puzzle or the chest or whatever the reward might be can be minuscule, maybe just a healing or whatever it might be. That's up to you, okay? But these are all the different puzzles that I have worked on, and there's so many more. I even have some puzzle, I think I have a puzzle guide somewhere in my profile. You can look for that. And of course, if you want to make any one of these a battle map for yourself, you simply need to go to the grid tool, click resize map from region, and then just drag. And that way you can create a new map from any one of these 4 battle maps. So if you really like that sewer map, it looks awesome, you want to incorporate it, just clone and edit the map and then resize each one so that way you have these puzzles. The sewer one is really my favorite, but you can choose any one of these and the puzzles that are within those, okay? All right, well, hey, I hope that kind of helped to understand like what kind of puzzles you can create, the kind of steps that you can take for your players to the challenges that they have to get to an end goal, and the level of difficulty that is there, okay? Hey, one quick announcement before I go. I just want to mention, hey, don't forget it's Maptober, so don't forget to check out the events channel in our Discord server. If you want to go ahead and check and participate, it's a map prompt for each day. Today is Dread Meow, so go check that out, okay? Hey, thank you everyone so much for making it. I kept this as short as possible. I will see you all in a couple weeks. We are going to be doing, I think I'm going to be showing you how to create cliffs on your world maps because, hey, maps look flat without cliffs, right? All right, hey, thank you again. Please stay safe and healthy and merry map making. Auf Wiedersehen, everyone. You guys are awesome. I'll see you later. Bye.